Good morning and welcome to Together We Thrive. First, we have a few housekeeping items to review. First of all, this session is being recorded. Participant videos are off and you are muted. Please switch your screens to speaker view under viewing options so that you can see the presenters and the slides. If you have questions, please submit them through the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to all of those at the end. Thank you for attending York County Community Foundation's webinar, and don't forget, together we thrive.
Good morning. I'm Liz Dellinger of Traditions Bank, Chair of the York County Community Foundation's Resource Development Committee and Secretary of the Board. I am thrilled to have you with us today for our Together We Thrive series, where we dig deeper into the critical issues that YCCF seeks to address. Our belief is that together we can tackle our community's toughest challenges and make real progress. Thank you for being here today and for all you do to help York County move forward. YCCF's vision is that York County is united, prosperous, and growing with opportunities for everyone to thrive. We fuel community transformation by inspiring life-changing philanthropy and grant making. YCCF's Fund for York County allows us to be agile on the most pressing issues of the day. Currently, we are awarding grants to programs and collaboratives that remove barriers to economic mobility for low-income individuals. Our aim is to help more of our neighbors thrive. A mounting body of research suggests that dismantling barriers and connecting financially insecure people to sustainable economic opportunities is the foundation of an economy that works for everyone. YCCF is able to help provide those opportunities thanks to donors like many of you on this webinar today. A gift to the Fund for York County in any amount supports programs like the two you'll hear from today. It also allows you to be part of the transformative work happening now, next year, and far into the future. Today, you'll hear from two of York County's affordable housing experts about how they are ensuring that low-income York County residents have a place to call home. They'll share the challenges individuals and families face to make finding a home a reality and share with you a few success stories. As always, we welcome your input as we remember that together we thrive. It's now my pleasure to introduce Adrian Buckner, YCCF's Vice President of Grants and Community Engagement, to share more.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Liz. We appreciate all that you do for the foundation. As the leader of our grant-making program, my team and I focus on transforming lives in our community by helping people thrive by building economic mobility for low-income individuals. Why this focus? Great question. The pandemic made it crystal clear that more people are living on the edge than we could have ever imagined. In fact, a third of county households are financially insecure. That means that people are living paycheck to paycheck, and they are one repair or health scare away from a financial crisis. We look to leverage our effort within many partner organizations like YCEA and the United Way in order to have greater impact. To address this critical need, YCCF has launched the Thrive Grant Program, primarily with dollars from the Fund for York County. Grants will focus on programs and collaboratives that transform lives in our communities by helping people with limited income overcome barriers. Not just plug a hole, but to holistically address the variety of needs of families with low income who face various kinds of struggles. Our goal is to ensure that they are less dependent on government subsidies and programs and to be able to live a life of economic independence. Having housing stability is key to achieving economic mobility. However, in York County, there are many factors that limit someone's ability to find affordable quality housing. Although the availability of housing stock is a challenge for all price points, it is especially challenging for affordable housing. Additionally, York County has a tighter rental market than the state average. YCCF and our community partners are working to make sure low-income York County residents have a place to call home. Today, we'll dive deeper into what challenges individuals and families face to make that a reality, how our guest speakers are working to solve these challenges, and even hear a couple of success stories. Our first guest speaker is Regina Mitchell, Executive Director of the York Housing Authority. As the current Executive Director of the York Housing Authority, Regina has demonstrated a sincere interest and broad expertise of over 25 years in the housing field, with 16 years in various roles of executive management. For those trying to do the math, Regina started when she was 26, so that's how all of this math works out well. And she's been doing a fabulous job. YHA has its portfolio 1,069 public housing units, including turnkey properties. The organization is also in charge of 1,722 vouchers for multiple programs. Regina is in charge with planning, organizing, directing, and coordinating all phases of the Housing Authority program. In May 2017, she became the president of the Middle Atlantic Regional Council, fulfilling the term of the outgoing president. She was appointed in October 2015 to a two-term as the NAHRO Vice President of the Housing Committee, serving simultaneously on the steering committee of the Board of Governors for NAHRO. A lot of letters there.
Yeah.
Regina also faithfully served 3 years as the state president for the Maryland chapter and former chair of NAHRO's Small Agency Task Force. Also joining us today is Joyce Santiago, Executive Director of Affordable Housing Advocates. Affordable Housing Advocates is a 52-year nonprofit housing provider focusing on advocacy, development, and management, serving all of York County. Along with serving on boards of Better York, Friends and Neighbors, United Way, White Rose Leadership Institute, and York City's Redevelopment Authority, Joyce volunteers time for many service organizations. Joyce resides in New York with her husband, Jose. She loves sports. And what's that team that you love the most?
The Dallas Cowboys.
I almost want to end it right there, but I won't as an Eagles fan. And cherishes time with her children and grandchildren. So let us welcome both Joyce and Regina. So we're excited to have you here as we continue having our Together We Thrive sessions. And during these sessions, we like to unpack a series of issues. And our issue that we want to talk about today is all related to housing, which is areas in which you both are in, have been in for many years. So the first question I would like to throw out to both of you: what are the barriers to affordable, stable housing in York County? What are you seeing as some of those major issues?
I'll take the lead. I think the cost of housing in general, whether it's construction or rehab, has really impacted our ability to develop new units, bring them online for low to moderate income families. That's one of the struggles that we see on a regular basis.
Agreed. And then on the flip side, from the point of the individual, everybody knows the rents are high, right? And I'm not knocking any one person, it's America, you said you're right, but the incomes aren't matching what it's needed to pay for the rent in the community. And we need to, we could talk about it later, but there's more workforce development that we could do to get those incomes increased so that our residents could be able to afford the rent.
So when we look at that a bit deeper, we do see that jobs really are paying folks more than ever before. I mean, you can go to fast food restaurants and walk in the door making between $17 and $20 an hour. Many would argue that if you're making that kind of money, you should be able to, find some affordable housing. But
Right.
You're saying that's not the case at all.
No, the Housing Alliance of Pennsylvania earlier this year published some information on every county in Pennsylvania. And in York County, you need 1969, I believe it is, to afford a modest 2-bedroom unit. Many of our residents in York County still don't, even though jobs are paying that, many of our residents don't make that. And so therefore, you're already having a hurdle to pay the rent because you're not paying what you need, to be able to pay the rent and to be able to buy groceries and to be able to, live your normal life. We're just not making that.
And then the other barrier, as we talk about employment, is transportation, getting to the job and being able to be fully present all the time and make the income. That $19, $20 an hour, in some cases, is not feasible because you have other expenses, just as Joyce talked about. We're seeing the increase of wages, but we're also seeing the increase of utilities, gas, childcare, food. That $19 continues to shrink and shrink for our families. And what is left is what they're trying to pay rent with.
Wow. So what I'm hearing is even though wages have increased, the increase with everything else has far exceeded the wages. So it's almost as if a person was still making $9 an hour, based on how everything has increased, and it's not affordable.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yep. And then even, I think it's great that our employers in the community are trying to raise those wages. But if, like you said about transportation, if you can't get to that job, then you don't get to that opportunity. If the job is third shift and there's no third shift childcare, then you still can't get to the opportunity. So there are many barriers that, make it a challenge for people to live their normal life.
Right.
And for those who tuned in before, we had, talked about childcare and the issues there. And of course, with there being a shortage, of teachers. So again, that becomes another issue with a person who's trying to earn that living wage or earn enough so that they're able to have affordable housing, safe affordable housing.
Right.
I think we also have to throw that word in there because we know there's often issues where people can find a place to live, but is it a safe place for them to live? Do we have landlords that are being responsive and taking care of the units? And those kinds of struggles also become, relevant. What has been your experience with folks living in almost dilapidated housing and you're afraid for their safety?
We've seen it since we've been in existence. We've done home visits as a part of that vetting process before people become residents, and primarily do it so that we could see what supports might need to be put in place before somebody moves in. So we've seen some conditions that there's no way you would want your loved one to live in. And then, like I said, I'm not trying to knock landlords, but there are some that should be ashamed of what their people are paying rent, and this is what I'm giving you. That's not right.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things that it dates back to 1978, and when the federal government passed lead-based paint laws. We are still having conversations with landlords about painting and the proper way to encapsulate old paint that was pre-1978. And we have studies and studies after studies that it is now affecting the ability for our children to learn.
Wow.
Learning disabilities prop up because of the exposure of lead-based paint. So we have these conversations with landlords, but some of them see it and they want to do what's right. But then others, they just say, well, I'm giving someone a roof over their head. No matter what's inside that or under that roof, they just feel, well, I'm giving them a public service. And we see it under the Section 8 program when we have to go out and do what we call our initial inspections. And landlords will say, oh, this will pass inspections. Doors won't shut, windows boarded up, bathrooms not fully functioning.
Wow.
Just the random things, leaks in the window, and on the windowsills, you see puddles of water, but yet they're saying this unit is habitable. It is not habitable.
In some of the conversations that we have with landlords, you do hear the conversation of, is there any kind of grant resource or funding resource? Because we we want to bring our units up to standards, but they don't have the resources to do it. And if they were burned by a previous tenant, as far as the condition of the unit at
Yes.
move out, then that kind of doesn't help the landlord want to continue participate, renting for affordable housing purposes. But I do hear it a lot from landlords, what resources are out there so that we can turn it around.
And I agree. I hear it from my landlords and other people that they want assistance in bringing the units that they have up to code and make them more habitable. But also, what can they receive if for severely damaged units that somebody moves out and they damage unit? There's no support for that landlord, and I hear that. But I have to commend some of my colleagues in Chester County, over in the eastern part of the state of the Commonwealth. They have actually been able to set up these funds that assist landlords to a certain extent in rehab, making sure they're getting some of their rehabs done before and after a resident moves out of the unit. So those 6 programs have been successful because the community has come together and saw the need.
Wow. So when we look at the fact that there's just not a lot of housing available, that then allows landlords to charge a much higher price point, even if the dwelling truly is not worth it. Is that what we're seeing?
We're seeing it all over the place about that we are seeing landlords who are saying, oh, this is habitable, and they're charging $1,000, and it's for a 1-bedroom, half a bath, in a place that you would not want to live, but they're saying it's $1,000 rent. And the interesting thing is someone will pay it.
Yes.
Because they're trying to get a roof over their head and have some kind of security for their family. And we often see overcrowding due to that, because instead of having a family that needs a 3-bedroom, will crowd into a 1 or 2-bedroom because that's what they can afford.
Do we see more generational housing? So are we seeing more of there being multiple generations living together simply because it's not affordable, or you can't find access to what you really need?
Yeah, I would say, well, one, culturally speaking, it might be that's a normal thing. That's how we grew up. But right now, because of you can't afford anything, right? Depending on what you're making, right? You have to decide, am I paying my gas bill this month, or is it going to be the electric bill, or because I got to pay my rent, got to have a roof over my head. And so if it works out better so that, hey, Regina, you and your family come with me and my, all together so we can share that expense. Families are thinking, hey, at least we're safe. We got a roof over our head. They're not worried about being crowded and, everything else that goes with that.
Wow.
And it's a shame that it has to get to that point. You know what I mean? That as a community, what can we do to reverse that, so that everybody can get, to have their own housing? Because for the most part, people want to work, people want they want their own housing, they want to live the life like everybody else. And so how do we get to that point?
And I can say that Cone, the developers of Thaxton Park Phase 2 down on West College, actually first saw that. When we tore down Cador's, we had 11 units of 5 bedrooms, which is a lot of 5 bedrooms in one portfolio. But interestingly enough, of those 11 units, of those 6 families actually needed to be in a 5-bedroom or a larger unit. So when we tore them down and brought back Phase 2 of Thaxton, we saw that. And we are one of the few developments in the Commonwealth that actually brought back 5 bedrooms. We have 5 bedrooms that will allow us to house families that have generations, because we have bedrooms and bathrooms on the first floor, upstairs. So if grandma or someone needs to live on that first floor and can't maneuver the 2nd floor stairs, they can still live and be a part of the family without feeling like they're going to endanger themselves by falling down steps or anything like that. So we had that. We saw it when we tore down Cadorus, and when we put the plans together for Thaxton Phase 2, we were able to incorporate those
That's
units
awesome.
into the plans.
That's awesome. And I know, one thing at the foundation, we work with older adults as well. And we provide funding through Embracing Aging, because we know that even our older folks oftentimes want to stay in their homes. They want to age in place. And sometimes they need upgrades, they need modifications to their homes in order for them to be able to remain there. They could have a walk-in shower or something set up on the first floor. Do you know of programs like that exist that help older individuals? Or are there programs in our community that they can look at or consider?
There are. Now, I know within our own housing, and most of our housing stock is for those that are 62 or better. I took that term from Jen May. But 62 or better, I love that. But so if there is a need to do some type of accommodation so that they could fully enjoy the use of the unit, we do it. It's no question. But there are programs out there, and I will not get them stated correctly, but if you're reaching out to the Area Agency on Aging, they can definitely direct you to whichever waiver program, sorry, something's flying, whatever waiver program that could get folks what they need. And then you have organizations like Servants that will go out and do modifications to units so that people could get full use of it. And they do target many times 62 and older, or 55, I'm not sure what their program, but older individuals. And so we need to get that information out to, all the programs. We need to make sure we get that out to the community. We could use an organization like the Community Foundation, Embracing Aging, to facilitate that. But there are programs out there to, I don't know how much money is available, but there are programs out there to help, redesign units.
And then that's very helpful. And actually the foundation provided some grants to Servants. I believe we helped purchase a vehicle, so because you had individuals that were literally just putting supplies in their personal vehicles and going out to people's homes and doing repairs and things like that. So some funding was made available for them to now be able to actually have an actual vehicle that they can put stuff in, much safer to transport. So we're proud to be partners with community organizations that are seeking to provide solutions. And as we look and talk more about solutions, what are some of those solutions that each of you are putting in place, or what are those solutions you're advocating for? What would you like to see as some of those remedies to help the situations we're dealing with? And I know it could be a laundry list.
Yeah.
It's okay.
But I want to stay on the same vein that we just left off of, is our senior population or disabled population.
Yes.
One of the biggest challenges that come across my desk on a daily basis is finding adequate housing that is accessible, that have no steps, that a wheelchair can roll into, but you still have full use of the house, the bath, the kitchens. We have a severe shortage within the city and with the county of housings that are accessible. So I guess my dream right now, my wish list, is for people to be able to select houses that are accessible, whether the head of household is disabled, they have a child disabled, but that everyone can enjoy the household. And right now, that is one of the biggest challenges I see in our local community.
Yeah, I agree. It's a huge barrier.
So solutions, how do we begin to fix, some of these issues? We talked about career development. We talked about, of course, childcare. We looked at transportation. What are some of those other things that we can do a deeper dive into the things just mentioned? But what are we advocating for? What's the push? If there was a takeaway that you wanted someone to have from this, to say, these are some action steps, what would you tell people to start doing?
Oh my.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a loaded question.
I love loaded questions.
Yeah. And I don't think you have 5 hours to hear an answer either, but
Go on about that.
yeah, but I do think, and I'll probably eventually answer your question, but I do think forums like this is always a good start, right? So getting the information, because there's sometimes when I'm talking to people about affordable housing challenges, you'll hear responses, I didn't know, or I don't know enough, and thank you for giving information. So I do think that it's great. There are quite a few collaborations going on right now in our community. And so organizations, it's great, are talking to each other, like the Housing Authority and Affordable Housing Advocates talk to each other all the time and, always have. But I think it takes more of conversations and people opening their eyes, being receptive, not ignoring the fact that your neighbor needs help, or, yeah. So I do think collaborations are key, but in my opinion, we have a community problem. We have a community crisis, and not one organization is going to be able to solve it. Housing Authority can't do it by themselves. Yeah, Affordable Housing Advocates can't do it by ourselves. And so we don't have an issue working together. We need the community to work with us. We need people to, find ways that you can, it's really not bad. Let's just use Section 8 for Section 8 program is through Regina, through the Housing Authority. That's guaranteed rental incomes as long as everybody's following the program. It's guaranteed rental income. And so you can go ahead and feel comfortable and take that chance on renting to a Section 8 voucher holder, because Regina's going to make sure you get paid, and you may not realize that you're doing your part in helping the community in the challenge, because every time you rent to a Section 8 of, Housing Choice Voucher recipient, you're helping our community problem. You're helping to get somebody housing, and then that person in turn can focus on whatever internal that he or she has to do to get to that next step of self-sufficiency, eventually getting off the program and moving on. But we all have a role to play, and we need to step up and play that role.
I agree. And, just back to the Section 8 or the Housing Choice Voucher Program, when landlords give people an opportunity to live in a nice home in a good environment, they thrive. What we're talking about today, they truly thrive. But it's when we get I guess my wish list right now is for landlords to be willing to take more Section 8 voucher clients, realizing that they are helping the community at large, but also when they're looking at investing in rental properties or Section 8, with some, we get some, this is why I want to invest in Section 8 property, but rental properties in general, that you're looking at the accessibility of those units as well. So many times I have people who are young people, but they have a handicap. They can't do steps. But they can't find a house.
Wow.
They can't find living arrangements that are accessible. So think about the affordability, think about the accessibility of these units and the location. Because when we look at the big locations, houses closer to jobs, good schools, transportation, help our families thrive.
Absolutely.
So those are the kind of conversations that Joyce and I talk about. Other housers within the community talk about. You brought up the pandemic earlier in the conversation. During the pandemic, I think that was the one time we really came together and we realized we all are speaking the same language, and now it's time for us to not talk the talk, but try to produce the stock needed for the local community.
Wow, and that's powerful, the message there from both of you. And I think that collaboration truly is important. I believe that that if we were to better understand what's out there, who do I go to for this, and how do I get assistance with that? Too often, folks are doing work and it's either we're doing the same kind of work, so why aren't we partnering more? Why aren't we trying to be more collaborative? I know, again, the foundation has provided, some funding to friends and neighbors, to focus on collaborative around housing, and we're looking forward to hearing more about that. But it seems like, that's going to be key in that collaboration. I believe stakeholders from all over. It's not just the people. We're talking about from funders to developers, property managers, we're talking about everybody really coming together.
Right.
Is that what needs to happen?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and including in that list, those with lived experiences,
Mhm.
because we can always assume what it is that
Exactly.
people need and want, like I went through challenges in my life, but what I went through when I was going through, it's not the same as what people are going through now.
Mhm.
So we have to listen to the voice of those that are going through the struggle, because then we can better enhance what we're trying to do to serve them.
right.
Can't assume.
And I will do a commercial for Joyce and I, that we're willing to work with for-profit developers in producing affordable or mixed income developments
Mhm.
or housing communities. It's not just that we focus on, oh, this is my lane,
Mhm.
I'm low income. No, we want to work with for-profit to incorporate affordable into a market rate scheme so that people who are low income still can have access to all of the amenities
Yes.
and see what can happen. And I think in our conversation early, we talked about giving people the liberty to dream better and bigger. And I think that's what happens when we allow people to get in better neighborhoods and a neighborhood of their choosing,
Yes.
so that when they sit back and they're comfortable, they can dream about what their next steps are going
Wow.
to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like that. It's almost, it becomes, contagious. Like,
Mhm.
wow, I actually can have that. And I think you hit on another great point because, I've heard, from developers, when I'm doing some of the Section 8 or low income housing, I'm taking a loss, and sometimes they're on subsidies that will make up that difference.
Mhm.
So if they're able to do some of that, market rate as well as low income, that could be a win-win.
Mhm.
They're able to get that market rate for various units. There
Mhm.
could potentially be some subsidies available that they could then take advantage
Exactly.
of.
Mhm.
So now you're providing that opportunity for people, as you said, to live in safe areas where they have the ability to have the laundromat right there. They don't have to worry about, leaving the site. They have stores and things around them.
Mhm.
It provides with the opportunity to, I guess, to thrive,
Yeah,
Right. It is
absolutely.
exactly.
which is what we want.
Yes.
We had a conversation with a developer, and some of what he said is that you do sort of need that mix,
Mhm.
because there are some people who are actually taking up some of this low income housing when they actually could pay more. It's just that sometimes that's not available because of
Exactly.
the shortage.
Exactly.
So if we provide more opportunities for market rate, some folks are saying, I don't mind paying market rate if I can find it, that's nice and suitable.
Mhm.
So then once they move up, that then opens up that lower, those opportunities for
Right.
lower income individuals.
Right.
So it really does provide an opportunity for everyone to be at a place that works best for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, what about some success stories? What have you experienced over the years? And you almost hit on it, yourself, Joyce, in saying that you had some lived experience, and
Mhm. Mhm.
you yourself, your success story. So either you could tell your story and or some of the stories that people who you've helped along the way through your work.
Yeah. I'm a product of Wellington Projects. As a kid, I have to throw this out there in case anybody's there. East End for life. That's our thing. So it's our thing. It was like a family growing up in Wellington Projects, and we all still get along really well today. So that's where that is. But so yeah, as a kid, we lived in Wellington Projects. As an adult, I lived in Parkway Homes, and so. For me, especially as an adult, that was a really good, I needed it at that time, especially for what I was going through on a personal basis. And I was able to start school and all that other stuff like that. But I was telling Regina the other week, when I was living there, and then my circumstances started to change. And of course, my rent was going up because based on income. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy kind of thing. But I had really good advice from one of the employees of the housing authority about, perhaps this is not for you. And then in our conversation, I understood she wasn't saying anything to be mean. She was just giving me that push that I needed. So which I'm very grateful for. So yes, I had plenty of struggles, and I can go on all day about it. I think there's some videos out there on YouTube about me. But We too have experienced some good success stories. We recently, in our family location in Georgetown, had a family move out because she was buying a home, and that for us is so
Yes.
exciting. Or when we have in our Dutch kitchen location that is targeted for those who are homeless, and it's just all single rooms. And when they move out of that building and getting a traditional apartment,
Mhm.
that's still a success story because they went from step A to step B. And so we always get excited about that and want to encourage and get our folks to self-sufficiency. And I know Regina's going to talk about this a little more because the Housing Authority has a family self-sufficiency program. We were just approved for one, and we're going to start it in our Stewartstown family location to help them to get better employment
Mhm.
and get on the road to self-sufficiency so that they can move on and do whatever they want to do, build some wealth in their life. So I'll let you.
And the family self-sufficiency, what Joyce has alluded to, is a HUD program. It is actually designed to help people step out of poverty.
Mhm.
So as since the program works is that you can come in, I would say, and I don't like using this term, but low income, the welfare kind of person.
Mhm.
You come into the program, you set your goals. You have goals. I want to get my credit right. I want to get training. I want to get a job. So over these 5 years, you set these goals. And as you obtain every goal, you're obtaining self-sufficiency.
Absolutely.
And so the beautiful thing about that is that we have a resident and she no longer lives in New York, but she has an excellent story. She started off on welfare with her children in Parkway Homes. She decided she wanted to go to school. She went to school. I think she ended up going to York College and got a degree in IT. She stayed in the FSS program. As her rent went up, as her income went up, her rent did not go up. So all of that money that should have been going towards her rent went to what we call an escrow account.
Yes.
And as she went through all of her little steps to get to graduation, she had completed school, had a job, and not only did she have a job, after she completed school, she was given a professional job offer in
Wow.
Georgia. And because she was determined to save that money and build on that escrow, she left out of the Housing Authority with over $20-some thousand to start a new life in Georgia.
Wow.
Yeah, and we have number of success
That's
stories
awesome.
through FSS. I want to give a shout out to Katie Love, who is our coordinator, who does a wonderful job for both the families in public housing
Mhm.
and on our Housing Choice Voucher Program. And most people don't think it works that way, but she works with both sets of families. Right now, we have spaces for, I think, about 80 families that she is working with on a continual basis
Phenomenal.
to make those life changes so that they can obtain self-sufficiency. Number of our families have bought homes, got better jobs, went to school. And as I like to say that as the parents succeed, the children see that success and follow the
It
success.
changes the narrative.
It does, it
Mhm.
does.
You know, it's very interesting to point, some of those things out because you would almost have some who believe that folks are lazy. That
Right.
They don't want anything better. They're in this situation because they choose to be. They just want, handouts. What do we say to those who have that mindset or they have that belief system? And some of it just is ignorance. How do we have that
I
conversation?
will say,
Yeah.
personal experience. I grew up in a household. My mother was a single parent of 2 children, 2 girls. My sister and I, we were on welfare, food stamps. I have no shame with that. But as we went into school, my mother decided to go back to school. And we went from welfare to not being on any assistance to my mother actually working a full-time job in management in retail. And I saw that. I noticed we sat down and we did homework together. That kind of regimen and seeing my mother succeed is why I'm here where I am right now.
And that's beautiful because, to top it off, I too, grew up, my mother was on welfare. We were in subsidized housing, youngest of 4. And, I watched my mom. She went to, I believe it was the Academy of Medical Arts and Business at that time, and got her certificate, stuff like that, and became a phlebotomist. And after that, ended up working for the state, for 25 plus years, but it was that effort, that helped me to understand one, it helped me understand that I don't want to go through this again. Okay.
Yeah.
So then I
Yeah.
need to make sure I'm making some different kinds of decisions.
Yeah.
But I was fortunate. Not everyone has that kind of influence in their lives to make them want to dream.
Right.
I've seen housing where we have 2 and 3 generations all living there together, and not necessarily because, people want to, but sometimes it's just having that right person there to have that conversation, to provide hope,
Right.
to say, I know grandmom did it and mom might be here, but you don't have to be, So what kind of education do you all provide to those who are within your programs, to help them to achieve, or at least to give them the opportunity to be exposed to more?
So I don't want to forget my thought. I got to add
Please.
to what you said.
Go back.
Sorry, I got to
That's
throw that
okay.
in there. Because you said about having not everybody having that the influencer to
Yes.
get them to the next level.
Yes.
It's not only that, it's also having the opportunity as well. So like you said, there are many people that are struggling, but that's not where they want to stay. They want to move on, but you just might need that little bit of opportunity. So like, if you could just give me this house to live in, I'll show you that I can work, that I will maintain it, and I won't mess it up, but you just need that chance. You need that opportunity in addition to maybe somebody influencing you, because you might already got it in your head. Yep, I want to do better.
It's
But
the opportunity
need
not
that
presenting
opportunity.
itself.
I need that
Right.
opportunity. I'm sorry, I had to get that out.
That's important.
And now I do not remember what your question was.
So as we can, begin to go into the question and answer phase, and hopefully folks, please provide us with your questions. We have these folks who do this for a living, they're impacting and changing lives every day. What's next? What's our next step? How are we looking to move this forward? What does the advocacy look like? And I was also asking about what the education looks like that you provide to your tenants or residents.
So it's not your traditional educational model, it's more like, and Regina has this too, resident services program built into our housing site. So we do our best to provide information referral and connect with services and the supports. As a matter of fact, today we're celebrating Resident Services Day in all of our locations. So I'm sorry, I got to do this. Shout out to Kim Pritchard, Jahidis Tejeda, and Caroline Pritchard, and all that you do. They're providing whatever it is it takes to help residents maintain their independence and keep their home. And then with Jahidi, our housing coordinator, she is through a grant through the York County Community Foundation. Thank you very much.
Oh, awesome.
Throw that out there. But she is she's only a month in doing the role. And she's connecting folks with housing and resources in the community and giving them whatever tools and education, if they need help to fill an application or don't understand how to reach out to this group or that group, so education comes in a different type of, not your traditional, as we all know, education to be within the housing world is just a little different.
Okay.
Right. And I think the housing authority, uniquely enough, York is a unique housing authority in the sense that our social service department under the public housing area is not subsidized by HUD. We have chosen, and the board has chosen, to subsidize that out of our operating fund and other revenue coming into the housing authority so that we have those supports in place. And what that looks like for the housing authority, for our family developments, it gives them that opportunity to link to other agencies and other community resources. But for our children on those properties, we have worked with York City York City Police, have on-campus counselor at Parkway. But what they do is they bring different things into the community so that the children have something to look forward to.
Which is
They
good.
see something
Yes.
different. They see professionals come in talking to them, the opportunity, as we talked about earlier, that space to dream, to look at things differently, not just in the confines of this neighborhood, but into the confines of the world, that I can be a citizen of the world. But through our FSS program, it allows the head of households and adult members of the household to gain self-sufficiency skills so that they are able to step themselves out of living in subsidized housing. Because oftentimes, and Joyce and I talk about this oftentimes, that some families get so stuck in receiving a subsidy, they can't see life beyond a subsidy. And Joyce said it the best. We as a community, we need to give people the opportunities to get that nudge to say life does exist outside of receiving a Section 8 voucher or public housing or living in a tax credit development. But you can do this, and we're going to help you get the skills in order to succeed. That's not us just providing housing. That's us providing an avenue for success for all of our families.
Building their confidence,
Yeah.
you know, because again, if I've lived in this situation or with this circumstance, or I just been living knowing that, you know, this is taken care of, and now potentially shifting to a place where this is all on me.
Right.
You know, that can be, there could be some fear there.
Right.
But I think what you're saying is through the education that you're providing, and again, almost through like the case manager type support, you know, to help them to understand that we're here with you, you know, even once you move out, you know, we're here to support you to ensure you're successful. That's often what they need to hear.
And that's where, you know, we talk about where the community can help out. That's where we could use the help, is allowing people to get that opportunity, but also know that when they step out, that they have some resources in place, that if I'm short a little bit on food this week, I know that I can go to this place and not be embarrassed. But we need to get the word out about other community resources to help them succeed. And that's where I find it. And also for our seniors, we talk about our families a lot, but for our seniors, Joyce and I both have senior portfolios, but one of the things that we should also talk about is how to teach and help people to age in place comfortably, and understanding the quality of life, and being able to still be and connect to their community, their family. But we also have to help our elders as they age in place.
That's right.
And going through that. And I see that because Broad Park's right behind me. And one of the things that I love to hear is when my residents are behind me and they're just talking and they're enjoying themselves, because that means that they're comfortable. It's just like when I see the children playing at Parkway, it's like, okay, they're feeling good in this neighborhood because they're out playing, they're having a good time. But that's the kind of quality of life that Joyce and I both talk about all the time, about providing for our residents. But like you said earlier, we need the community support. It's just not that we are on affordable housing or island unto ourselves. We want to link to the community.
And what you're talking about, you know, is making sure we prepare people the right way. You know, another initiative we have here, we have Trove Street, powered by Embracing Aging. And that focus there is to ensure that not just as folks are already there, you know, 50 and older and looking to say, okay, what does my life look like next? But even making sure younger people begin to understand that at some point in time, you know, I am going to age. That is the goal.
Yeah.
Okay. That is the goal. Because if you're not aging, then that means you're no longer with us.
Right.
Exactly.
You know, so, you know, the object is to grow and become older. And we want to make sure that we're properly planning for that, you know, so we have that resource with Trove Street that really helps folks to say, hey, how do I prepare myself for that next phase in life? Because I sometimes think that people don't realize it. Like, when you retire, you sometimes have this idea on all this money you're going to get, because I have a 401k or I have a state pension or I have Social Security. And then you retire, you realize, wow,
It's a struggle.
I don't know how to live with this,
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to make sure folks are prepared and understanding and properly planning, for that. So we do have a couple of questions that have come in. We have about 10 minutes left, so we can get into some of the questions. So the first one is, why can't housing or rent costs be regulated to prevent unethical increases? I had a friend who was renting a townhouse a couple of years ago, and her lease was up, and they said, based on market rate, the rent was going to increase by $350 a month. So essentially, you just evicted me. It was what I just heard. You're telling me to leave. Is regulation good or bad? I mean, is that something we can prevent or should be prevented? What are your thoughts?
I just wonder what somebody planted and put or something, but okay, so as a landlord, it is your right to set your rent. This is America, you set your rent. But in times of crisis, could there be something where a regulation that maybe the percentage of the increase is capped, particularly during a time of crisis? For me, I'd love to see something like that. I'll be honest, I think about that all the time, but I think as far as, I'm not an attorney, so I can't speak on what the laws are as far as restricting folks from setting their rent when this is America and this is their property. But if we could, even if you have an existing resident, and I get it, the costs are going up for landlords just like they're going for everybody else. We're all experiencing the same increasing in pricing, but just maybe if you could stop and think about, is that person really capable of paying what you're trying to all of a sudden increase? Can you, if you're going to require me to pay $600 more in rent, can you help me get a better job so I can pay that $600 more in rent? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's impossible. It's impossible for a lot of people in that struggle. So I understand where the question's coming from, because we hear it all the time. People calling like, my rent just went up X amount of hundreds of dollars. What do I do? What do you do? Because if you don't pay,
you're out.
And then for that, the regulations, I think about New York, and I think about the East Coast, especially New York, New Jersey, who have rent controls. That can be a bad and a good thing.
Yep.
Because in New York, you find people who are in rent controlled buildings, they never leave. So they're in rent controlled buildings. They know their rent's going to be a certain amount. They don't leave. But the problem with that is they don't leave to make room for someone else coming in who really needs it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So with the rent controls and trying to regulate it through law, it's a little hard. You can have some bad consequences and you can have some good consequences. But I think we just need to take a global view and realize and teach our landlords that a part of being a part of a community is also being fair and ethical in your business practices.
And I think, sometimes the issue becomes that I won't go all the way down this rabbit hole. I'm just going to throw it out there. I think the issue becomes the landlords are not a part of the community, so when you own the property, but you live in a different community or a different state, then it becomes very different. It's just business as usual. What's the max rent I can get versus someone who may have roots or they're vested in the community to say, even though I know I can demand more and get more, my love for this community and the fact that I understand where people are won't allow me. So there's two different kinds of people,
And I will say that some of my best Section 8 landlords are what we call our mom and pops, who have about 4 to 6 units scattered throughout York County. They are the ones who don't come in for high rent increases. They keep their properties. They actually are concerned about the people who live in their units. But yeah, that's the local landlords. They help us maintain affordable housing. So kudos to our landlords who got 2 or 3 units and really wanting to help the community.
So we talked about, how much a person needs to earn. So how much do you have to earn before tax to afford a safe home? And this is in New York. So $19 an hour, is that before or after tax? $45,000 a year, or is it 30,000 after tax? Like, where do you need to be?
Well, that 1969 number, that was like back in February,
February,
so
so-
we're in September, so it's a whole nother.
And it
it's a whole
shifted
nother
again,
thing.
and it shifted up.
Yeah, and I don't know what that is. I think, I mean, I can't give that magic number. Because what is affordable for one might be a
Yeah,
little different for
right.
somebody else.
Mhm.
Depending on number in the household, your lifestyle,
Mhm.
all those things come into play in that, so that's the best I can give.
So what about, is there any collaboration that you two are doing, your organizations are doing to develop new homes for low income families?
Yeah, I would say we both have programs.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So we do have, like, so we're affordable housing advocates and we have rental opportunities with waiting lists. Yeah, we didn't talk about that, but we have waiting lists.
Exactly.
And then we also provide home ownership opportunities, and when our organization was first formed, that's how we started doing home ownership first. And so we just finished a home ownership opportunity in Wellsville, and we're going to start one soon in the city of York. So we do a little bit of both, and if you want information about that, you can always give us a buzz, 717-846-5139.
And the Housing Authority, we actually have a development partner, creating opportunities in neighborhood environments, which by short we call CONE.
Yes.
And I want to give a shout out to the foundation because they actually gave us some seed money to actually start a position so that we could put in a tax credit application for Thaxton Phase 2, those 50 brand new units on West College. But when we talk about collaboration, we work with CONE, with the Housing Authority to create those. Got 50 units coming online as we
Awesome,
speak.
awesome. Those.
And we have several tax credit developments out in the county. We have Waverly in the east. Waverly and other units out in the western part of the community. And in the city. So we are creating housing. We are looking to do some development work off of Pleasant Acres and submit an application for that. And talking about a barrier, that's one of the barriers. The cost of doing affordable housing is one of the biggest barriers. And we can talk about that later. But we are looking at opportunities. I think the goal for CONE and the Housing Authority is to do more smaller developments, pocket, do some infill housing, not necessarily in the city, but looking at the city, but also in some of the communities where there's located closer to jobs and they can actually be able to be in good school districts as well.
Because I know that matters, because that often drives people from one community to a next school district, and then often taxes, because sometimes taxes is just unaffordable. So you can't, at least when it comes to buying, but even if you're renting, that then is part of that rent you're paying, which could be the reason why the rent is higher, because of the taxes that owner then has to pay. So we do have more questions that have come in, but we're also running low on time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do our wrap up, and then we're going to stay on, for a couple of minutes and just answer a couple of questions. But again, wanted to thank you both for joining us today. And everyone out there, again, thank you all for joining us and being a part of our conversation. Again, this is a critical issue that our community is facing, and it does impact all of us. I'm pretty sure most of us are connected, or someone who deals with this issue. If you'd like to stay on for an extended question and answer session, we'd be happy to have you. If you can, additional questions will be shared in a video of the event that we'll be emailing to everyone who has registered. At YCCF, we will continue to learn more about the challenges facing our neighbors who struggle to become economically mobile and strive to find and be a part of the solutions. Having stable, affordable housing is key to achieving economic mobility. And this is something that I personally believe should be the right of every individual to have safe housing, to have secure housing. It shouldn't be optional for some and then for others. So this really is one of the staples of the work that we look to do. And we are committed to leveraging our grant making dollars to fuel community transformation. If you want to support the work happening now, next year, and into the future, if you want to help increase economic mobility in our community, please visit our website, www.yccf.org, and reach out to our development team to learn more. And again, I want you to stay tuned to our next webinar. Again, our focus is to ensure that people thrive, and we won't stop until we have a thriving York County. So again, thank you, and we look forward to having further conversations. So what we'll do for those who have opted to stay, you only have about 2 or 3 more questions we'll get into. So the first one is, from the funder standpoint, what power do funders have to help with this situation around housing?
I have 2.
Okay.
One, as I mentioned earlier, the foundation was instrumental with us actually putting in an application for Thaxton Park Phase 2 because we got the money for the position who finished the application from the foundation. So I say thank you for that, and I'm truly always will be in your debt for that because it allowed us to succeed in a big project. The other one is that when I look at some of my colleagues across the country, especially in the Commonwealth, they're using foundation funds to fill the gaps in their funding. So we put in an application for 9% tax credits for, let's say, like a Thaxton.
Mm-hmm.
And we may have that $500,000 gap.
Mm-hmm.
For us, that's a big gap.
Mhm.
We don't have that in our coffers.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of funds help us get a project across the line.
Yeah, well said.
It's just that simple. And there's many models out there in housing on how foundations are now assisting with creating more affordable housing.
So do you think it might help elders in place and expand the pool of rental opportunities if zoning laws were sort of loosened, especially in suburbs, that would allow individuals who are living by themselves have a full-size house to legally rent out rooms? So if I have this 5-bedroom house that I own, and I want to be a part of this solution, how do you think zoning laws would allow them, should they be loosened, for folks to do that? Could that be one of the answers? Can that be a solution to some of what we're dealing with?
I think because we're in a crisis right now, for me, I'm open to all kinds of solutions. My only concern with something like that is I think it's great someone wants to offer their home, but just to make sure that it's considered stable, safe, the safety, whatever that needs to be done to make sure that people are in safe conditions, not just, okay, I'm just going to open my home and it might not be anywhere you want to put somebody in. But yeah, I think that's an opportunity as well.
Yeah, and it's odd when you said that question, I actually thought about what we are now calling the granny flats that are sitting in behind houses. California has now, I think, opened up that legislation and passed legislation that actually allow homeowners who have large lots to put almost like a little tiny house in the backyard for someone. That has helped in some areas of the country, but also throughout the world, we are seeing those kind of granny flats, accessible dwelling units that allow people to have like a main house, and that behind them could be a 1-bedroom, bath, kitchen for someone in the community that they can actually afford. So yeah.
So another option.
We have to be creative.
And I think that's where we are,
Yeah.
Again, because I think the need for more housing is going to increase faster than our rate of being able to produce more housing.
Yeah.
So what do we do in the interim?
Yeah, because our waiting lists are indicative of that.
Right.
For the folks that are coming in, we talk about all the time. 6 months, 10 years in our locations for the rental housing. So, and I can't speak on yours, but I know yours are long as well. So if that's what we're seeing in our community, then we have no choice but to get creative and seek alternative solutions.
So does too much assistance homogenize our communities? Are we crippling folks because we provide too much assistance for too long of periods? Could that sometimes be some of the issues that we see?
I will say, and I don't use this word often, no. And I think when we talk about the creativity of building communities, that homogenizing community is something we talked about early on in the 60s and the 70s, where we had housing that was, and I like the better word, is like the Parkway Homes, where we condense of all the low income housing. I am an advocate, a proponent of being able to put and sprinkle affordable housing through affordable neighborhood, in market rate neighborhoods and buildings, so that you don't have the concentration of one income or one ethnic group in one location, but people actually have the choice to move and be where they want to be in a diversified neighborhood, whether it's diversified with ethnicity or income.
I'm gonna leave that one there.
Oh.
Well said.
Let's give a thumbs up. So for several years, especially with the pandemic, banks have paid very little interest for cash assets deposited with those banks. So can banks partner with communities to better incentivize from, providing opportunities for closing cost assistance? They want to, buy a home, setting aside savings for emergencies. What do you see that relationship being like?
Well, banks provide financial education all the time for residents. And I know through programs like the Family Self-Sufficiency, they can be involved with even more education for folks. And they can utilize their CRA dollars as much as possible to, target affordable housing. I know there's other categories they can use it as well for. But I think it would be great if the local banks, I'm not saying they're not doing it now, but the local banks in this area to reach out to Housing Authority, Affordable Housing Advocates, to connect with us, and we can talk about some creative solutions that we could do in our community utilizing their services.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you foresee an opportunity for York City to legislate and encourage, more accessible dwellings, units, or tiny homes? Is that something you all would be supportive of?
Oh, I absolutely would be
Yeah,
supportive
I
of it.
would definitely.
Absolutely.
I would love to work with someone both in the city and in the county.
Yep.
To see that happen, even if it's on a kind of trial basis, to just do a study on it to see if it works. But there's numbers out there all over the place that said that these dwelling units actually work.
Yep.
I've seen them when I went to South Africa. They do a lot of it because the concentration, especially within Johannesburg, is so tight that they are now allowing these dwelling units that are really nice. They're not just like, where you're putting grandma out in the garage.
Right.
These are full scale, small houses that stand alone with their own utilities and everything. So I would love to work with somebody on that.
So again, what are we talking about? More solutions.
Yeah.
more
Yeah,
solutions.
the housing.
Yes, I believe that we have clearly.
Call us both.
Yes.
We have clearly.
Work with others together.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. But
Yeah.
because I believe that we have made it known what the issues are.
Yeah.
And now for those who are listening, we don't ever want this to come across as just a complaint session, but this is honestly an opportunity to say there are things that we can do.
Yeah.
And some of them aren't, huge things, but they're small things, that each of you can potentially do to help us address this major issue. Are there resources in PA or locally for mixed income development? And I think we hit on some of that earlier, saying how partnerships with you all could definitely work. You're more than willing to work with a developer that wants to do a mixture. So, when a developer looks at you, don't look at me as I'm just a low income person.
Exactly.
No,
Right.
we will work this thing. If we can get a percentage of those designated specific for low income and market rate, Let's do it.
Absolutely.
I have, that's my song all the time. Every time I get a chance, that I will say that I will work and I want to see it. And even in Thaxton, I keep bringing up Thaxton. Thaxton's, we actually have units that are not what we consider tax credit units.
Mhm.
They are they're for those 80% of AMI, which do not qualify for any of my housing programs.
Mhm.
But because we saw the need of that of the family and household who sit between 80% and 100%, they also want to live in nice places and not necessarily be eligible for subsidy. So yes, I am willing to work with anyone who wants to create mixed income communities.
So that's an all call for all developers.
Yep.
Yeah.
They
All
said,
call.
we are here.
Yes.
We're
We're
willing.
here.
Yes.
We're excited. Let's make it happen.
Yes.
So our final question, how do you publicize your services that you offer? So what do you do to make people aware of who you are, you exist, and this is what we do?
So the traditional, brochures, social media, getting information out to those we serve, other agencies.
Mhm.
We always need to do more. I think every organization, you can't do enough of internal promotion. And then through people that sit on our board of directors or our various committees, we'll also share that word. And so, if there's anybody on this call that's interested in being in one of our committees, you can always give us a buzz.
Please.
But yeah, but seriously, we're always accepting people to help us meet the mission. We're here for the community.
Mhm.
And so we need the community to help us do that. And so we're always willing to have people help us out.
And
Yeah.
far as getting the word out, I hate to say, I'm the housing authority, so we don't have to do a lot of advertising because people
Yeah.
know what we do.
Yes.
But it's through forums like this that expand my scope and people understand that, they're just not the housing authority. They also develop housing, they assist their
Yeah.
residents in
Yeah.
self-sufficiency. They try to create a better neighborhood for the neighborhoods that sit around our properties. So these kind of forums and opportunities to meet the community is how I get the word out.
So they may come up with that narrow view. Oh, there's a
Yes.
housing authority. I need
Yes.
help with housing.
Yes.
I need some low income housing.
Mhm.
And then they get in there and they're like, wow,
Mhm.
it's a system.
Right.
It's
Mhm.
a whole suite. And do you feel like people are taking advantage of the opportunities that you all provide?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep, I definitely think
Mhm.
so. Sometimes, if you're just moving in, you may have to get yourself situated and settled
Right.
first before you even do that. And I get that. I respect
Mhm.
that because depending what you're coming from, it's a lot to unpack.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think for us is our residents, they have to get situated. But once they realize that they have services and they can be connected to services, they work with the people on site, but also for the local community in itself. I get calls several times. I'm willing to sit down and meet with anyone who wants to talk about it, brainstorm about how we can create more housing or how we can help a given community.
Mhm.
But it starts with the conversation
Yes.
and being willing to have that conversation and actually being willing to have some hard conversations.
Yes.
Because not all of our hot conversations are, oh, everything's just great, but these are some of the challenges that we're dealing with affordable housing, and how do we get those solutions done too?
Mhm.
And how does a person know where to start this process? What do they do? Okay, I'm in a situation, I need housing, I need help. How do I start?
Well, if they call either one of our organizations, our staff will give them information
Right.
for, if we can take care of you, or now that we have the housing coordinator, she will, if we can't house you, you're not eligible, those kind of things.
Mhm.
And even if we can get you on our waiting list, you're gonna wait a while.
Mhm.
So our housing coordinator could try to actively connect you other places.
And that's
yeah.
what we do. We try to use local resources for people who need immediate assistance.
Mhm.
We have very little emergency housing vouchers out there that we can quickly assist people. And I think we've actually at our capacity right now on those that came out during the pandemic. But we as an agency, if you call the housing authority, we will direct you to a local community resource. I'm going to tell you the best one right now is 211. And plug for 211, but they do have a whole list of housing providers that can offer emergency housing or shelter, just in case you're needing it immediately, because Joyce and our waiting lists are very long.
Yeah. And well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because in York County, there are a lot of organizations that even if they don't provide direct housing, they provide supports and or connections to get them to housing, and kudos to all of them that do the work day in, day out.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you both for being here. Those who stayed on with us longer, again, thank you. We truly appreciate you. And we look forward to our next session. So stay tuned. And until next time, be safe.